Good evening and welcome to another episode of My Fiber Fun. Well, y'all, I'm back early, okay? First of all, I have some updates to give you. The first update is going to be about the crochet along. Wait, what did I do with my... Oh, here it is. See how much kobu I had left? I think I want to make a triangular shawl with this. This is enough, more than enough, to make a nice triangular shawl with this, or it's going to be like a shawl scarf, because y'all know me and the snood. So anyway, this is what I'll be using for the tutorial. And I was going to just do a swatch, but I will do so many rows before I end it, because once you grasp the concept of what to do, there's no sense in me going through the whole thing. But I am going to begin the video with this shawl. I happen to have it on now because I just turned on the air because it was 2,000 degrees in here and the air had been off since 3 o'clock, so I'm cooling it off. But in the meantime, I needed to cover my shoulders, so I was like, what better shawl to use than my United States of America patriotic shawl with the glow, the glow. So anyway, this is what we're going to be making. Actually, you can go with any color that you want for your yarn. This was cotton yarn. I use cotton yarn for this, and I use my patriotic cotton yarn for this. And then I bordered it with the glow yarn, and this is what I had made for the 4th of July this year. You know, I have my little American flag on it. And then I have some other patriotic symbols I need to put on it. And then also the other thing too, I'm going to be wearing it for voting in November. A friend of mine is running for mayor and he won the primary by a landslide. So that's good. So it'll be him and another guy running. And so I'm quite sure that Mike will win. Okay, my friend, I'm so happy. Okay, but anyway, so anyway, here we go with the shawl. So this is it. So I'll be using the kobu instead of that orange yarn that I had mentioned yesterday. No, that wait a minute, I made a swatch. I actually did a test video because I'm going to be filming at my dining room table, because I want you all to see me. I want you to see the supplies that we're going to need right before you. So I tested to see if the camera would pick all that up, which it did. And it also captured me on video crocheting and demonstrating exactly the exact technique to working top down with this particular shawl. So I've done the test video. I started to upload it, but I'm like, no, I'm not, because I made all kind of mistakes in that video. So I'm not going to upload that. I'm going to just delete that video, and then I will film the actual video on tomorrow to have ready to upload on the 14th, which is Thursday. Okay, so anyway, so this is how your shawl will look when you're done, depending on what color you use. So here it is, and I love it. I really like this. Okay, so that's number one, preliminary number one. The second thing is, oh, I never gave y'all an update on the walker. I know y'all been probably waiting on that, and I've been forgetting to update you. Okay, a week ago, I called CareLink to see if they had received the revised prescription, and the guy that I spoke with told me that they had. He says, so it'll go through all the little channels and whatnot, and then we will get started, and you should have your walker within a week. Okay, well, today marked a week, and I hadn't heard anything back from them, so I was like, I'm staying on this tough. Let me call back. So I called back, and this lady named Christine answered, and she happened to be like one of the supervisor people, and the number that I called actually connected me. It didn't connect me to the local office. You could be connected to any office that comes up in the phone queue. So for the most part, I had always been connected to the local office. This time I was connected to the corporate office in Grand Rapids, and boy, talk about some action that's coming. So anyway, Christine answered, and I explained to her what had been going on for the past 2 months, you know, and she was like, no, you should have had that walker within 5 days of the prescription being submitted. And so I told her all the stuff that had happened and everything. I was like, and she's just now, you know, she just sent it like a week ago. I was like, but I hadn't heard from no one, and I was told by Mark that it had been received. she pulled me up in the computer and she said, it's showing that we just received a prescription on today. I'm like, today? And then she mentioned it doesn't have the diagnosis code or the chart notes. And I'm like, we've gone through this a million times with this chick, that she has to have the diagnosis code added to the prescription and the chart notes. I said, we've asked her to do that at least 4 to 5 times. And I said, she's refusing for some reason. She said, oh, I'll take care of that. She was like, I'm going to handle this from here. She's like, because this is unacceptable. So she said, I will be calling her. No, she said, I want you to call her and ask her to send it to me. She said, care of Christian. She gave her direct fax number and she gave her direct phone number and extension, so that, and she said, if she doesn't understand what it is she needs to send, tell her to call me. She was like, do that. She was like, and I will get on it right away and I'll let you know if I hear from her. I was like, okay. So I hung up from her and I called right away. So of course the same person, Tanita, whatever her name is, answered the phone, and I was like, Tanita, we keep saying that we need the diagnosis code and the chart notes. She was like, well, what exactly is that? I was like, you should have been asking that 2 months ago if you didn't know. And so I explained it to her. I explained exactly what it is. And so she's like, oh, okay. She was like, I'll get that and I'll send it immediately. 30 minutes later, my phone rings. It's Christian. I'm like, okay. She called me right back. So she called back. She was like, Miss Davis, she was like, she said she sent the prescription once again and she put the diagnosis on there, but she didn't add the code nor the chart note. I was like, listen, I give up. I was like, maybe I'm gonna have to go to my doctor's office, go behind the desk, tell them move over and let me do it myself. Because at this point, I know exactly what to do. Okay. So she said, no, I told her exactly what she needed to do. She said, and she told me that she will need to speak with the doctor to get that information. She should have known that from the beginning, but I guess she wasn't understanding. And instead of asking for help, it's no shame in asking for help if you're slow, because obviously at this point, I'm convinced she's slow. Toot toot, short yellow bus, slow, okay? And I hate to say it like that, but you know, it is what it is. I'm short yellow bus slow when it comes to math. Now you tell me something over the phone about some math, I'll probably do the same as her. So I'm not even tripping, okay? Just get it done. So Christian said, okay, so I have it from here. You don't have to do anything else. So she told her what to do. So now Tanisha, or whatever her name is, Tashita, is supposed to call her first thing in the morning and fax the correct things to her. She has the prescription. All she needs to do now is fax the diagnosis code and the chart notes. That's all she has to do. So let's hope that she does it. And so Christina told me, if she does what she's supposed to do, she's like, number one, I'm gonna call you right away to let you know I received it and to let you know that now I'm contacting your insurance. She said that shouldn't take but a few hours. She's like, because this is covered under Medicare. She said, and she said, and your secondary. She's like, and since I have your prescription and I will have your chart notes and your diagnosis, she said they will approve it immediately, which I already know because I was already told I was approved when they ran it at the company, the manufacturer of the U-Step. So I said, okay. She said, and once it's approved, she said, I will call you and let you know. We will schedule your delivery, she said, which will be no later than the end of this week. So fingers crossed, knock on wood, and hopefully I will have my walker by the end of this week. Okay, I am happy, happy, happy. So I'm glad that she took over, and she's one of the big corporate people, so I have no doubt that she's going to do it right. And she said she will be talking with Mark to find out why Mark told me that the prescription had been received when it hadn't. She said that prescription just came through today, and that's 2 weeks late on top of that, because we requested that it was a week ago today. No, but before then, it was, when was it requested? Like midweek, and then I called last Monday to see if it had been received. I think I requested it the Friday before, and then he said he received it on last Monday. And I happened to call today to follow through, and come to find out it didn't get received until today, this Monday. So 7 more days have been wasted. So she said she will be speaking with Mark about that to find out why he told me that the prescription had been received as of last Friday. It hadn't. Okay. Well, anyway, so that's that. That's where we are with that. Thirdly, I left y'all with the cliffhanger. I just left y'all hanging when I ended the story yesterday. I must have been tired because I had been on for, what, an hour and a half, a little bit over that. So I left y'all totally hanging because I had started the story about the follow-up with Zethel after Mr. Andrews had died, and I ended up getting into the story about Alicia, and I never came back to Zethel. So I do that all the time. I don't finish a story, and then, you know, I end up getting off track. So let me finish that story. Okay, so the Oklahoma Heritage Association, they contacted me, and they wanted me to contact Zethel since she was the one, you know, over Mr. Andrews' estate at this point, since he's now dead. And she would have needed to go to do the go-ahead or give us the green light to go forward with the book. And so I didn't want to call her right then because, you know, everything was fresh and everything. So I told her I would call her later. Well, in the meantime, I got sick and all that and had to come home. By the time I came home in February of 2002, my mother was there in Oklahoma for a month before we could figure out how to get me home sick. And so finally got home in February. I got insured because I didn't have any health insurance at the time, but I was able to get insured through the state immediately, and I was able to find a doctor, and then that's when they started finding things. It turned out first I had a hiatal hernia. I couldn't even crochet back then because it hurt so bad to even move. So I'm walking like this. And so I had a hiatal hernia, so that had to be repaired, the Nissan fundoplication. Then they ended up diagnosing me with lupus and fibromyalgia because my ANA, anti-nuclear antibodies, were like sky high. And they said, you have lupus. And so that's how I have that diagnosis, but I haven't been plagued with it since. It's been the MS that has plagued me and other things. I have like over 8 autoimmune diseases, and wherever it attacks in your body, that's the autoimmune disease that it is, because everything attacks something different. Okay, so anyway, it started out with the hiatal hernia and the lupus. So anyway, once all that was established, we had gotten into maybe the month of April. And so I finally felt well enough to call. No, the Oklahoma Heritage lady called me again to follow up. And I told her everything that happened. She didn't even know I was back in Michigan. I told her that my friendship with Alicia was now no more. I didn't go into the reason why and everything, but I told her we're no longer friends. I said, so so from here on in, I said, I have everything. I have the tapes. I have the videotape. I have everything. I said it's neatly tucked away. At that time, it was in my mother's house because that's where I was living. But I had bought a tub for all that stuff, and I put it there, and it was in the closet. So anyway, I said, so if Zethel gives the green light, I said, I feel well enough now to where we can proceed with it. I said, although I'm here in Michigan, I was like, so we got the story. I said, it just needs to be put into book form or whatever. I said, and if I have to make a trip back, I will, that type of thing. And I wouldn't have flown, but I would have gone back if at the end or whatever. So I just wanted it done. Although Mr. Andrews gave his request and what he wanted me to do, I'm still trying to push it because it was already established, and all the stuff that was going to happen, the forward and all that, I thought that would just be the perfect ending tribute for him since he didn't get a flower, okay? So I'm still trying to push this. So I told her I would call Miss Zethel and talk to her and see what she says. So I called Zethel, and we hadn't talked since the funeral, so she's trying to catch up. How you doing? Blah, 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 blah. So she hadn't talked to Mrs. Andrews because Mrs. Andrews knew that I had gotten sick, and I'll get to her next because I have to follow up with how we, what happened with us after the fact. Okay, so anyway, I filled Zethel in on how I got sick, ended up needing to leave Oklahoma, move back to Michigan, blah, 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 blah. And so I told her that I had been hearing from the Oklahoma Heritage Association, and is now that it's been some months later since his death, they would like to continue on with the book. I said, the information is here with me. I said, I have the tapes. I have him telling his story. I have video footage of him. I said, and newspaper articles. I said, and if you would like copies of all this, let me know. I will make sure that I send them to you. I said, in general. I said, but we will need your permission to move forward with it. I said, and so I'm just asking because they wanted me to ask you. And she said, nope. I'm like, what? She was like, she was like, everybody who knew him knew his story. She said, and I feel that, she's like, first of all, I'm up in age. She explained why. She said, I'm up in age. She said, and also, she said, I would probably need to travel back and forth. She's like, and I'm looking at the big picture. She said, if the book comes out, if the book is done, it comes out, you're looking at book signings, you're looking at, all the legalities of it. She's like, and I'm old myself. She said, let's just let Uncle Henry rest. And she's like, and everybody can carry him, those who knew him, she said, can carry him in their memory. And so I told her, I totally understand where you're coming from. I said, and I won't pursue it any further. I said, but we'll still keep in touch regardless. And she was like, okay. And, we pretty much ended that phone call because we were on the phone for quite some time. And so I thought to myself, when she was telling me this, I never got upset because I thought Mr. Andrews told me what to do. So that's still, I'm thinking, okay, I still have that ace card, up my sleeve. I can still get the story told. I just write the book about myself and incorporate him in it. That's all. And if I have to switch up the name, I just switch up the name, but I still tell the story. And, I'm still telling the story. Okay, so anyway, and the book still could be written. I don't know. I really don't, because I'm up in age now. But at least I have a digital print of the story. That's the beauty of it. You guys have heard the story and stuff, and I'm quite sure with it being online, at some point somebody's going to come across this. Somebody might pull up, because I hashtag centenarian. Somebody might pull up centenarian. And if they pull that up, this video will hit their algorithm and they will see it. Although it's in the parts and stuff, but it might interest them or whatever. You never know. So it's out there. And hopefully I can write a book about it because, it's so much to write. My life story. Ooh, Lord have mercy. Y'all only hearing bits and pieces, but I have had a very, very interesting life in these 61 years, believe me. Okay, so anyway, so as far as Mr. and Mrs. Andrews are concerned, when I got sick, Mrs. Andrews was very concerned. She checked on me every day and stuff. She knew my mother was coming, and she knew that I was going to need to come home. And so when my mother got there and everything, like I said, she called every day to check on me to see how I was doing. She was like, you were just doing too much with Uncle Henry, and it just got you. And she was like, and you had that injury. I said, I know it's all tied in some kind of way. The stress. I was like, we had 911, the stress. I was like, my uncle almost died. I said, and then we lost a family friend suddenly. The stress from that, I said, and that injury, I said, I know that this is tied in with that, but I just don't know how. I was like, but I can't go any further. I got to go back home, get insured, get a doctor. And so she was very concerned. So when my mother got there, with them knowing my uncle, my mother's brother, they were like, I always heard about his sister and she's here. We want to meet her. And so she invited Mom and I over to the house, and then she invited us. She said, I'm going to take y'all out to lunch and we're just going to sit and have a visit. And so that was my goodbye visit because she knew we were going to be leaving in a few days. And so they got to meet my mother, and they were just so thrilled. They were like, we finally get to meet Worth's sister. So you're Ruthie, And so it was just so nice. And my mom and her brother looked alike too. So they just really, they got a kick out of that, meeting a friend of theirs that they had been friends with for decades, okay? At least 50 years, because Mr. Andrews, the nephew and my uncle went to college together right there at Langston. So they've known each other since they were like in their late teens. So here they were in their 70s, both of them, at the time. And so anyway, or no, he was 80. He was a little older. But Uncle Worth, let's see, he died in November. Our uncle had just made 90. So yeah, Uncle Worth had hit 70 by then. And then Mr. Andrews, he was like 80. So, but they knew each other from school. I don't know if how that happened, but they knew each other. That's all I know. And they had known each other for decades. So they had always heard about my mother, but they had never met her. So it was nice to put a face to the name and the stories and all that stuff, because it was some stories about my mother and her brothers, okay? My mother had all brothers. She had the one that was 20 years older than her. She had one that was deceased that was even older than him from my grandmother's first marriage, and she was widowed. Then she married my grandfather, and she didn't think she could have more kids, and boom, bang, she ended up having 3. Uncle Worth, Uncle Wendell, and then my mother. She was the baby. And they used to do all kind of stuff. My uncle sold my mother for a nickel. Said he got the slop beat out of him for that. They would do all kind of things to my mother because they would make her, them let her tag along. And my mother was a tomboy. Oh, I'm getting into something totally different about my mother's childhood. But yeah, so my uncle was always telling those stories about my mother as a child. But boy, they were Papa Bears in protection and stuff. And then when she got older, oh boy, couldn't say anything crass about their little sister. I was like, but yeah, y'all hated her at the beginning, huh? But yeah, he sold my mother for a nickel. That was the big story, okay? And he said, I got beat to no end. And then my mother used to get them in trouble. Think of the show What's Happening. Dee and Raj. My mother said I was Dee and my brothers were Raj. And so can you imagine? She was the big mouth little kid who told everything and got them into trouble all the time. But anyway, okay, off all that. So yeah, so they met, Mr. and Mrs. Andrews met Mama. So that was wonderful. In fact, we saw her again before we left, because we ended up leaving like 3 days later, and we went back by there because she wanted to give me, she had a walker that she said, I have a brand new walker and I don't know where it's at, but let me find it. And if I find it before you leave, I'm gonna give it to you because that'll help you with your walking because of this hiatal hernia, which I didn't know what it was at that time. And so she had found it. And so she called me and let me know that she had found it. And so we were leaving that next day. And so Mama and I went back over there. We sat and visited again. We said our goodbyes, hugged and everything, and said that we would keep in touch, which we did. We were in touch constantly. I mean, because we had become such good friends, and she was concerned about my health. So she knew everything that had happened with me, my MS diagnosis, everything. And so we kept in constant touch until 2012. In 2012, suddenly, I didn't hear from her anymore. I couldn't get in touch with her. Their phone was disconnected, and I was like, I wonder if they've died, because they up in age too. I wonder if something happened. And so I called my uncle after I had attempted to call maybe 3 or 4 times, and I was like, Unks, have you heard from Mr. and Mrs. Andrews? I said, their number is disconnected. I haven't heard from her in a few months here. I was like, and I always talk to her at least once out of the month. She would send me things in the mail, all kind of stuff, cards, all kind of things. I mean, we were in great touch. And so my uncle, he said, I don't know. He said, I haven't heard from James in a while either. He was like, I tell you what, he said, I will call. And by then my aunt had died, because my aunt was good friends with Mrs. Andrews, but my aunt died in 2009. And then my Uncle Wendell had died 2 weeks after my aunt in 2009 too. And so my uncle, he's still dealing with, he's still reeling from his wife. And she had died 3 years prior, almost 3 years. So anyway, he tried to contact them, and then he started asking around because they had mutual friends. And come to find out, they both ended up being they had moved to Texas. Their son came and got them, and he was their caregivers. They had moved to Texas because they both had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So Mr. Andrews, the nephew, his was real bad off, and Mrs. Andrews, hers was more recent. Like her diagnosis, it came like 6 months before, and so she could no longer care for her husband. So the son in Texas, the one they went to visit when Mr. Andrews had the hip surgery, he and his wife came and got them and moved them in with him. And so Mr. Andrews, he passed away first, maybe a year later, and then Mrs. Andrews ended up passing away right around 2014. And that was after my mother's stroke and everything, but I never talked to them again after that. That was the end of it when I lost the contact in 2012. But my uncle kept up with how they were doing and things like that, because they had other relatives that my uncle knew right there. They had relatives in Tulsa. They had a son that lived in Tulsa, son and daughter-in-law, and then they also had, there were other relatives, you know, not in Langston, but in Oklahoma City. So my uncle he knew them, and he was in touch with them through their little social circle, and so that's how he kept up with them. And then he would pass on to me, you know, how they were doing, that type of thing. And so they both ended up dying. So they passed away, and then I found out later that Zethel had passed as well, and which I know she would be 100 now, so I'm quite sure she's dead, but I had found out that she had passed away. So at that point, and then the president of the university passed away in 2011. He died, and I watched his funeral online. Okay, so everybody associated with everything, I don't know, you know, I lost touch with Oklahoma Heritage after, you know, Zethel would not give the go-ahead. And so I told the lady the story will be told. I was like, because Mr. Andrews had told me what to do in the event of his death. I was like, and that's what I will do. And she was like, okay. She was like, good luck, best wishes. And that was it. That's where we ended our correspondence. So anyway, the only one who may be alive still is Alicia. And shoot, I don't see her. She's not on Facebook, because I told y'all I got nosy and I looked up her name on Facebook. She's not on Facebook. There's no digital print of her anywhere. So basically, she could even be dead at this point. I don't know. But anyway, so that's the cliffhanger I left y'all with, because I'm quite sure y'all probably was wondering, so whatever happened? What happened with Zethel? What happened with Mr. and Mrs. Andrews after she came back to Michigan? Blah, blah, blah. I know y'all thought that. What happened? So that is what happened. So this is actually the end of the story, okay? So I miss all of them. I really do. I miss them all. You know, I can say that. And that was just the most beautiful time of my life, I could actually say. So let's end it there. So I'm gonna get off of here because it's time for dinner. It's only 8:30 and pitch black outside, so I'm sitting under my special light. I have been. That's why I said, let me go on and upload this video now while I'm thinking about it, because I'm under the special light. So now I'm getting ready to go cook dinner. And then I have to cut some more sweet banana peppers for my pepper powder. I made a batch the other day, and I'm making another batch until I have my quart. And then I'll sit down and rest for the rest of the evening. That's it. Okay, so I will talk to you guys later, and I will see you on the episode where we do the crochet along. And I will talk to you later, and may God bless you all. Bye-bye. One more look at the shawl. So this is what you guys will be making. Isn't that nice? Woo! Bye.